Chapter 1 This world is full of weirdness. This is the third day after Yan Zhen's was reborn on this planet after the explosion in the laboratory. The rebirth location is a country called Huaying Dadu. Tianmeng District, Shunqian City. This city is equivalent to the second and third tier cities of Earth China before Yan Zhen's was reborn. Different from other reborn people, after rebirth, Yan Zhen's parents are still alive, he doesn't receive a lunch box, and in good health. Even the healthcare product salesman who, as long as he is 98, take them all home, has nowhere to start. The only difference is that this reborn world reveals a lot of inexplicable weirdness. For example, at 2 o'clock in the morning, the door outside the living room will be knocked on time. In the silent night, there will be a very pure, mechanical knocking sound that makes people get goosebumps. For another example, it is strictly forbidden to enter the bathroom after 12 o'clock in the middle of the night at home. Usually around 11:50, the bathroom door will be directly locked with a key. Of course, living people cannot be suffocated by feces and urine, so simple toilets are prepared in the bedrooms. After the rebirth, the memory of the original owner has not recovered. For this family, for this world, and for the inexplicable weirdness revealed everywhere, Yan Zhen's has built up his cognition bit by bit. On the second day after he was reborn, that is, on Saturday, he learned some information about the world by looking up information on the internet. The so-called weirdness is called a weird event here. Since about half a year ago, weird events have been popping up in this world. At first I thought it was a very rare event, but soon the strange events spread all over the world. Some weird websites have sprung up like mushrooms after rain, and there are a large number of weird pictures uploaded by netizens and videos of personal encounters. The number of pictures and videos is unimaginable. There are also special chat groups, B-station live broadcast and so on. Fortunately, if there are weird events, they are basically limited to a certain area. If they are not close to this area, usually there will be no abnormalities. This is as if his parents forbade Yan Zhen's to enter the bathroom after 12 o'clock in the middle of the night. Father Yan Deguo stipulated that the bathroom door must be locked at 11:50 every night, and could not be opened until 6:30 the next morning. As for the reason, Yan Deguo kept his mouth shut. But there are always exceptions, not to mention that Yan Zhen's has just been reborn, and he has not fully formed this cognition, and he is not used to the condition of this body. On Saturday night, until he returned to the bedroom after washing, he only to find that the glasses were still on the sink in the bathroom. This body belongs to a senior high school dog. After reviewing and doing exercises all day and all night, he has already formed more than 300 degrees of myopia, but other bodily functions are not bad. As long as he survives this year, he will be a hero again after the college entrance examination. The thought of the original body owner was a little naive and speechless. Yan Zhen's took a special look at the time. At this time, the clock had pointed to 11:54, and it took less than a minute to get the glasses away, which did not violate the rules of his father Yan Deguo. Besides, he has not yet established a deep understanding of the seriousness of entering the bathroom. Weird events? The mouthwash cup jumps up to catch the water, blood flows out of the faucet, a scary face appears in the mirror, and the face towel is on the hook. Before encountering it personally, everyone thought that the real horror was far away from them, and Yan Zhen's also thought so in his subconscious mind. Walking out of the bedroom, squatting in the aisle, took out the key placed under the absorbent carpet in front of the bathroom door. Yan Zhen's quickly inserted the key into the lock, and twisted the door open. The space in the bathroom is relatively narrow. A sink and a toilet occupy half of the area, and the remaining area is reserved for the shower. But when you take a shower, the water will definitely splash on the sink, or even the mirror in front of the stage. The whole bathroom is pasted with red and white square tiles, only the sink and toilet are pure white. Turn on the light in the bathroom, and the narrow room emits a warm yellow light, but the light in the bathroom is still overall dark. Yan Zhen's felt a little dizzy inexplicably, and his blurred eyes swept over various items in the bathroom, as if there was nothing unusual. After walking in a few steps, he grabbed the glasses on the sink, put them on, and returned to the bathroom door, then reached out to turn off the light. After putting on the glasses, Yan Jun's eyes became much clearer. When the light was turned off, his eyes glanced away inadvertently, and then he jerked violently, staring fixedly at the corner of the room between the sink and the toilet. There, at some point stood a little girl with disheveled hair. The girl was about 5 or 6 years old, facing the corner, with her back to the bathroom door. She was wearing a red lace dress, her arms and calves were bare exposed, but covered with bruises, and her neck was tilted 180 degrees to the right, but the skin was not broken. Her 2 little feet were not wearing shoes, and the sole of her right foot was turned upwards, which should have been subjected to a violent impact. This is a bit like Captain Barbossa in Pirates of the Caribbean, but the broken leg can still hold wine, which is really cool. But for the girl in red, it was terrifying. What was weird was that the entire back of the girl in red was bent like an old tree trunk, forming an S shape. She just stood there, motionless, with her sticky and messy hair hanging behind her. Yan Jun's has no time to think about Captain Barbossa and his broken leg that can hide wine. A strong sense of fear quickly gained the upper hand, making his body tremble involuntarily, and a cold breath spread out of the corridor through the bathroom. Yan Jun's felt that his breathing had stopped. Strange events, what is in front of you is the weird events that are breaking out everywhere in this world. Seeing the news on TV and experiencing this kind of thing in person feels completely different. Only now did he realize that the gap between the two was as wide as a chasm. Yan Jun's palms and back were covered with cold sweat, and he wanted to close his eyes and stop looking at the back of the girl in red, but he couldn't move his eyes away, and he still stared at the strange body without blinking. At this moment, the crooked neck of the girl in red, who had been motionless all this time, moved, and slowly turned towards the door of the bathroom. At the same time, accompanied by the cracking sound of broken bones, it was like 100-year-old the old branches were broken, which was particularly harsh in this silent night. At this moment, Yan Jun's limbs were icy cold. Unknowing where the courage came from, he quickly stretched out his hand, grabbed the doorknob of the bathroom, closed the door with a bang, and quickly turned the key on the door twice, took out the key, and held it tremblingly in his hand. The parents' bedroom was opened, and the sleepy father Yandaguo and mother Li Man came out. "Azaa, how long have you been studying? Why haven't you slept yet?" Li Man asked in surprise, and then looked at the closed bathroom door. "You were still in the bathroom just now." Yandaguo's drowsiness had completely disappeared, and he immediately went back to the bedroom and grabbed his phone to check the time. "It's 4 minutes before 12 o'clock. Yandaguo walked out of the bedroom again, came to the bathroom door, twisted the doorknob, and found that the door was locked, and then looked at Yan Jun's trembling hands holding the key. Bringing the key from Yan Jun's hand, Yandaguo turned his head and said to Li Man in a stern tone, "I tell you to put away the key, put it away, and don't put it away for convenience." Li Man had already understood something from Yan Jun's unrecovered expression, and just nodded. At this moment, Yandaguo was angry, and she didn't speak up. Yandaguo looked back at Yan Jun's eyes. Although his eyes were stern, he couldn't hide his concern, and asked, "Did you see her?" Yan Jun's did not answer. "It's okay, as long as you don't enter the bathroom during her appearance, you will be fine." Yandaguo comforted him. "Dad, that thing didn't appear at exactly 12 o'clock. Yan Jun said. "That's why I asked the bathroom to be locked 10 minutes in advance." Yandaguo replied, then turned to Li Man and said, "Next time, the key cannot be placed in front of the door, and I will keep it personally. I will lock the door on time every night, and come back the next day open on time." "Not next time." Li Man came to Yan Jun's with an apologetic expression on his face, and stretched out his hands to hold his shoulders. "Dad, didn't we report the weirdness at home?" Yan Jun's couldn't help asking. As for the birth of a security officer, it is similar to an organization that maintains social order, just like the police in ancient times, but a real security officer cannot handle weird events. It's just that the number of weird events is growing extremely fast nowadays, and even if they are reported, they may not be able to be dealt with immediately. At the beginning of the outbreak of the weird incident, Buddhism and Taoism were still in the limelight for a period of time, but people gradually discovered that the so-called all kinds of talismans, magic tools, and other items used to suppress demons, and ghosts have little effect on today's weirdness. Effect. For this reason, some people who believed too much in the tradition died one after another, and everyone realized that this thing can only be effectively dealt with by relying on the spirit remover. And the spirit remover also paid a lot of money in order to study weirdness. The method of killing weird is very secret, and ordinary people have no chance and cannot master it. Yandaguo sighed, I reported it a month ago, saying that I have to queue up, but I haven't been in the queue yet. Yan Jun's was a little speechless. Although this world is very weird, there should be a lot of social favors. It is said that there are queues, and there may be people who continue to jump in the queue through special relationships. I don't know if I have to wait until the year of the monkey. During this period, the area is only temporarily closed. Fortunately, the girl in red in the bathroom doesn't seem to be the type who is looking for trouble. Although she looks a little sorry for the audience, she looks quiet like a quail. As long as she doesn't enter the bathroom during the time when she appears, nothing should happen. Question. Father Yandaguo works in the office of a paper mill, an ordinary employee, with a monthly salary of less than 10,000. Yes, more than 3,000 points. Mother is the cleaning aunt of the cleaning company, the couple are of one mind, and their monthly salary is comparable to that of Yandaguo. Such a working family lives in an old-fashioned community, and the house is only 2 bedrooms, 1 living room, 1 bathroom, and 1 kitchen. It is unrealistic to ask the Yan family to move out and leave this weird place. Nowadays, after the report of the weird incident, it is even more unrealistic to queue up for a relationship, based on the social relationship between Yandaguo and Li Man. So things are deadlocked. Unless the weird incident is huge and affects a wide range of people, for a thing like a quail-like ghost in red suddenly appearing in the bathroom at home, if you don't line up for 3 to 5 months, you will be sorry for the cute and scary little girl. Yan Jun's returned to his bedroom, and his mother, Li Man, came to comfort him. Yandaguo checked the door lock of the bathroom again, and then confirmed that the door lock of the living room was also locked, and the couple turned off the lights and returned to their bedroom. However, Yan Jun's couldn't fall asleep. The scene just now was the first time in his history that he witnessed a weird existence with his own eyes. That kind of real sense of experience still gave him goosebumps. There is another reason why he couldn't fall asleep, because after seeing the little girl in red, a map suddenly appeared in Yan Jun's mind inexplicably. Please support Fennan's new book. Book Group, 6414344073, end of this chapter. Chapter 2 I Can Revert. This map appeared in Yan Jun's mind almost at the same time when he saw the little girl in red. But Yan Jun's was completely immersed in the visual senses and the terrifying atmosphere at that time, so he didn't have time to pay attention to it. Now lying in bed, I can finally see what's going on. The map is not a real graphic, but a complete illusion, which only exists in his mind. Yan Jun stretched out his hand and shook it in front of his eyes, but there was really nothing. In the map, a large number of linear veins appear, and each line is connected to a node. Currently, only one node at the bottom is lit up, and the rest of the nodes are all grey and dark. This is... Yan Jun's felt that this thing was very familiar, as if he remembered something. He was shocked. Before the explosion of the laboratory in the previous life, the experimental research on the collapse of spacetime relied on a kind of quantum map, which can also be called the spacetime map. And these nodes are the quantum gathering points that need to be overcome in the experiment, also known as the energy accumulation area, which is a large number of nodes that rely on the gathering of energy that cannot be fully grasped, and finally connect the entire graph through node transmission, which can lead to time progress. Orderly conversion. This paragraph can be skipped. It is what ordinary people call time and space travel. However, Yan Zhen's thought that the experiment was not successful, but now this map is in his mind, and it is very complete. Does that mean that the experiment has actually been successful, and it is only shown in this way with oneself as the carrier? In the experiment in the previous life, Yan Zhen's was just an ordinary assistant in the laboratory, not a research and development personnel, but the explosion in the laboratory was so powerful that both the research and development personnel and assistants were affected, and he should have been taken over by the same pot. While he was wondering, Yan Zhen's was shocked again. After he paid attention to this map, the map obviously changed, and lines of characters flashed out. The construction of the space-time map is completed, the energy of different dimensions and the complete transverse band of the dimension space are detected, and the band is being analyzed. Analysis succeeded, translating, the translation is successful, the band is called obsession in this world, and the task has been established according to the complete band value. Do you want to show the task? Although he is only an assistant, Yan Zhen still has a certain understanding of this time-space map. The time-space map is very intelligent, and at the beginning of its creation, it was given the ability to intelligently analyze and construct illusory time-space. Now that I think about it, it should be that the space-time map detected the different dimensional energy emanating from the strange body, and analyzed the band value based on the obsession to form the so-called task. Yan Zhen's probably guessed that if he wants to obtain this part of the different dimensional energy for use by the space-time map, he must complete the task formed by the space-time map based on the obsession. But this task is show. Yan Zhen's hesitated for a moment, and had this idea in his mind. The next moment, a paragraph of text appeared in my mind again. Task name, shampoo, task level, panic, low, task background, March 7th is Kier's birthday. The beautiful and clean Kier likes red the most. On this day, her mother puts on the red dress she just bought and promises to take her to the amusement park, but a car, the ruthless truck, separated them forever. After the car accident, Kier's hair became very, very dirty. Kier, who loves cleanliness, hates this long dirty hair, so she has been longing to wash her hair. Even if she sees someone washing her hair once, she will be satisfied. Mission description: wash your hair in the bathroom at home after midnight for at least 3 minutes. During this period, it is strictly forbidden to do anything unrelated to hair washing. Mission reward: 100 different dimensional energy points. Task penalty: unknown. Task reminder: 1. The evil spirit cannot be locked. 2. Completing this task can form a stable time rewinding line. Note: you are washing your hair, and she is staring. Staring at the task in front of him, Yan Zhen's was a little dazed for a moment. The space-time map releases tasks based on the captured band of obsession. This so-called band of obsession obviously comes from the girl in red that Yan Zhen saw just now. It's just that he didn't expect that the space-time map would capture the so-called different dimensional energy in this way to complete the task. In terms of the intelligence of the map, capture energy, form obsessions into tasks, and then obtain energy by achieving obsessions. The causal relationship should be interlocking. In other words, before the time-space map was triggered, Yan Zhen's did not dare to have the idea of contacting weird events, but now it is different. Since the time-space map can absorb the energy of different dimensions, if the absorbed energy is enough to successfully light up the entire map, it may be possible to freely transform time and space, allowing oneself to return to the Earth before the Huiguo laboratory exploded. To get more energy, you have to complete the task. I have to say that the way to complete the task is a bit weird and infiltrating. Not to mention everyone in this world, at least some people in daily life, are very afraid of washing their hair in the bathroom alone. Because after lowering the head and applying shampoo to the hair, in order to avoid the shampoo getting into the eyes are usually closed, and at this time, some timid people will always feel nervous, wondering if there is someone standing behind them. That kind of creepy feeling will always be accompanied by him, her, washing hair. Yan Zhens doesn't usually have these thoughts, but he has also experienced it, especially after watching a horror movie just now. When washing his hair alone in the bathroom, his whole body will unconsciously tense up, and there will be thoughts in his head. The scenes in horror movies, plus a little bit of my own association, lead to unconsciously turning my head to look behind me during the process of washing my hair. It's okay to simply wash your hair in the bathroom, but now Yan Zhens is worried about whether this process will be dangerous. At least after 12 midnight, the little girl in red will appear in the bathroom. Washing your hair under such circumstances is even more exciting than being escorted to the execution ground for decapitation. Looking at it now, this golden finger seems useless. After posting the task, let yourself complete it, and don't care about anything else. What if you encounter danger during the process? Continuing to think wildly, Yan Zhens' mind kept tossing back and forth between the time-space map and the hair-washing task released, and he couldn't fall asleep all the time. Time passed unconsciously, and the hands of the clock on the living room wall slowly pointed to 2 o'clock. At this moment, Yan Zhens' brows suddenly frowned slightly, as if there was a dark shadow passing by outside the bedroom window. The black shadow walked so slowly that Yan Zhens could still see the passing shadow when he immediately put on his glasses and looked sideways when he noticed something strange. His bedroom is close to the public corridor outside the house. Usually, when he opens the window, he can see neighbors passing by outside the window. In addition, there are voice-activated lights outside the corridor. The walking figure is a bit hunched, with fragmented steps. After a while, the scattered footsteps disappeared, and so did the black shadow. Looking at it, it should be a neighbor who came home at night. Yan Zhens speculated that activities such as playing cards and eating supper, no matter what time and space they are in, their status in people's minds will not change in essence. There are many people who have this preference, and it is normal. Just as the thought fell, there was a clear knock on the door. Judging from the source of the sound, it should be knocking on the door of my own house. When the knock on the door rang 2 nights ago, Yan Zhens only heard it in a daze. But at this moment, Yan Zhens' heart tightened inexplicably, because his mind unknowingly connected the figure who just passed by outside the corridor with the person who knocked on the door. Judging by the walking speed of that person, the time from passing the window to the door of his own house seems to have just coincided. Regardless of whether it was true or not, Yan Zhens felt his heart almost jumping out of his chest, and a layer of cold sweat soaked down his back again. It's so late. A person walks out of that kind of fragmented steps in the corridor, and knocks on other people's doors silently. This man can't be Batman. He didn't get up to answer, but subconsciously raised his ears to listen to the movement in the parents' room next door. The door of the parents' bedroom was opened, and it seemed that his father, Yan Deguo, came out, with very light footsteps. After a while, Yan Deguo stood in the corridor outside the bedroom, motionless, and there were still intermittent knocks on the door of the living room. Yan Zhens just raised his head slightly, staring at the door of the bedroom, almost stopped breathing. Yan Deguo still didn't move, and stood quietly outside the bedroom door. The strange atmosphere made Yan Zhens breathless. At this moment, the knock on the door stopped abruptly. The sporadic footsteps sounded again, along the living room door. Passing through the public corridor, the hunched back appeared outside the window of Yan Zhens' bedroom again, slowly passing by. Yan Zhens dared to swear that at this moment, his myopic eyes behind the lenses were definitely bigger than a bull's eyes, staring fixedly at the black shadow passing by the window. The fragmented footsteps were like stepping on one's own heart, which surprisingly reached a consensus with the rhythm of the heart. Although the black shadow was gone, the sound of footsteps could still be heard. It seemed that the person walked up the stairs slowly, and then the sound of footsteps disappeared completely. The sound of closing the door came from the parents' bedroom, and Yan Deguo also returned to the bedroom at this moment. From the beginning to the end, no one in this room said a word. So weird. Yan Zhens was stunned again before his thoughts settled down. The space-time map in my mind resurfaced again. Detected new different dimensional energy and dimensional space transverse band, analyzing, analysis succeeded, translating, the translation is successful, the task has been created, do you want to display it? Yan Zhens never expected that after just a short while, he would capture a new mission. He didn't think much, and immediately thought of showing, and then the second task appeared. Task name, the old woman knocking on the door in the middle of the night, mission level, panic, medium, mission background, neighbor Granny Wren is very distressed recently, because her children haven't visited her for a long time, and she misses them very much, especially her little grandson Yu Xiaochang. But Granny Wren couldn't tell them. Can you help her mission description? Open the door for Granny Wren who knocked on the door at 2 o'clock in the morning, mission reward, 200 different dimensional energy points, task penalty, unknown, task tips, 1. The evil spirit cannot be locked, 2. There are branch tasks to be triggered for this task, note, Granny Wren is not dumb. At this moment, Yan Zhens found that another node of the time-space map in his mind lit up, and the connecting line segment between the two lit-up nodes also lightened slightly, showing that this section of time-space line has been completely connected. At the beginning, Yan Zhens could see clearly that only one node was lit up on the graph. As for the second node, it should have been lit up for some reason after receiving the task of the old woman knocking on the door at midnight. Although he didn't know the reason, Yan Zhens clearly knew what the time retracement line between the two lit nodes meant. Between two time nodes, it represents a timeline that can be traced back. For example, if Yan Zhens now sets the first time node at the present time and the second time node at 5 minutes later, as time goes by, he can start backtracking at any time when he reaches the second time node, and roll back instantly it's time to install the first time node. Recording must be done manually, that is, only after you have consciously placed 2 time points to form a time period, can you use this time period for resetting. It will not work beyond this time period. If there is no special arrangement, it will also not be possible to roll back. One connection received 2 tasks, which gave Yan Zhens the ability to backtrack. This time, the golden finger was finally complete. Maybe you can try the task of washing hair, but Yan Zhens dare not try to revert now, because the energy of these 2 time points seems extremely weak. If it is really carried out, I am afraid that it can only be rolled back once, and the entire space-time map will be darkened and will not run again. The energy of the 2 nodes that have finally been lighted up cannot be wasted like this. End of this chapter. Chapter 3 Joe Dolly. The current situation is that after Yan Zhens received 2 tasks in one connection, he faintly lit up the 2 space-time nodes of the time-space map, making the first time retracement line ready for use. Through this retracement line, he can create a time retracement of no more than 5 minutes. Of course, this time retracement line does not look stable, and it may be completely extinguished after using a time retracement. Unless the task is completed, the corresponding different dimensional energy is obtained. Follow the mission prompts. Only in this way can you light up a solid space-time node and get a solid time retracement line. If the nodes of the entire time-space map are lit up, can I travel through time and space again and return to the world I came from before? At least, if the imminent spiritual crisis can be resolved through the map, will there be more surprising things waiting for you after lighting up the entire map? If it is as Yan Zhens guessed, then he has to think clearly about which task to complete by using the only time to go back first. The first task to be triggered is shampoo, and the given task level is fear, small. And the second task is the old woman knocking on the door in the middle of the night, and the task level is fear, medium. In fact, from the task description, washing hair feels more terrifying and dangerous than the old woman knocking on the door in the middle of the night, but on the contrary, the level of washing hair is only small. Obviously the degree of danger is not as high as the latter. This made Yan Zhens very puzzled. However, in the quest prompt, it was stated that the old woman knocking at the door at midnight quest still had side quests to be triggered. He didn't know if this was the reason for the slightly higher level. Now it seems that it is more reliable to choose the task of washing hair first. After weighing for a while, drowsiness finally struck. Yan Zhen's had already made up his mind, and quickly closed his eyes and fell asleep. The next morning, Yan Deguo opened the bathroom door early after waking up, made sure that the little girl in red had disappeared, and then rushed to the factory after washing. Li Man also got up very early. In the morning, the cleaning company had a full schedule of work for her, and she needed to finish cleaning the 2 households that had already been booked. After cooking a bowl of noodles for Yan Zhen's, Li Man followed Yan Deguo and left. After eating noodles, Yan Zhen's took out his mobile phone and looked through his usual call records. After seeing a name named Zhou Heng appearing very frequently, he called Zhou Heng. Soon a young man's voice came from the phone, and he said brazenly, "Hey, Xiao Junjun, have you missed your grandfather and me so long? Best friend, should be the best friend of the original owner of this body." Yan Zhen's knew that he had guessed right, and said, "Zhou Heng, come and wait for me at the gate of my community, and we will go to school together." "What did you call me?" Zhou Heng looked a little surprised on the other side. "I don't have time to talk nonsense with you." Yan Zhen's deliberately made his tone very low, "Remember to hurry up, call me when you arrive, and I'll come down later." "Okay, you kid must have done something bad." Zhou Heng laughed, "Don't worry, Zhou Dolly, will always be your brother Dolly, and I will take care of what happens." Hung up the phone, Yan Zhen's thought for a while, and said to himself, "Is this guy's nickname Zhou Dolly, or Brother Dolly?" There was a reason why he asked Zhou Heng to pick him up. Without the memory of the original owner of this body, Yan Zhen's didn't know the location of the school at all, so he used this method. It's just that getting along with classmates is definitely different from before, so Yan Zhen's is going to use the weird incident he encountered as an excuse to create an image of a teenager who has just experienced horror, is a little confused, and his behavior is in contrast to the past. It's impossible to call this guy Big Brother Dolly, because this kind of name is a mother. Yan Zhen stood up and walked to his parents' bedroom. As expected, Yan Deguo did not take the bathroom key with him, but put it in the bedside table. There are 3 identical keys of this kind, all of which are set in a key ring. Yan Zhen took out one of them, and also took out the key of his own bedroom, and replaced it. The lock type is the same, and the key shape is also similar. Unless you look closely at the key teeth, it is impossible to find out that it has been changed secretly. After changing the key, Yan Zhen put the changed bathroom key next to him, and prepared to do the task of washing hair tonight. After waiting for a while, the phone rang, and Zhou Heng's voice seemed to come through an external speaker, saying that he had arrived at the gate of the community. Yan Zhen put on his single-span school bag and went out, locked the door and went downstairs. This residential area is called Fenghua Community, and it is indeed very old, with a history of at least 40 years. The tallest building only has 7 floors. The number 7 building where Yan Zhen lives has only 5 floors, and Yan Zhen's house is on the 4th floor. The old woman who knocked on the door in the middle of the night was her mother-in-law, who lived on the 5th floor. When he was about to walk out of the community, Yan Zhen looked back at the 5th floor. There were 4 households on the 5th floor, and he didn't know which one Granny Wren lived in, but the entire 5th floor seemed quiet, with no one coming in or out, giving off a gloomy feeling. A boy who was also carrying a single-span school bag was standing at the gate of the community. The moment he saw him, Yan Zhen understood why this guy was nicknamed Zhou Dolly. If calculated according to the cross-section, Zhou Heng is at least equivalent to 3 thin Yan Zhens, regardless of his thick limbs like a hammer. Is this guy from a martial arts family? Yan Zhen raised a question mark in his heart. However, he knew in his heart that through the past few days of understanding, although this world is different from the earth, it does not have urban supernatural powers, cultivation, etc., and there are not so many strange settings. Currently, only spirit removers can deal with weird events, so even if Joe Dolly's body is as strong as a cow with hair passion, it is useless when encountering weird events. Come on, what do you want to tell me? Joe Heng's voice was in direct proportion to his figure, and he basically relied on roaring to speak. His sudden words made the nearby passers-by tremble with fear, and they all cast surprised glances. Yan Jun's couldn't help but want to laugh. He waved his hand, and put his arm around this guy's shoulders. In fact, Joe Hung was leading the way to Shuntian No. 3 Middle School. Joe Hung didn't suggest taking the bus, and Yan Jun's refrained from saying anything, but just described what happened to the bathroom last night, which made Joe Hung stunned. Immediately, Joe Hung said, "If you want to talk about weird events, it's because the neighborhood you live in is too old. The odds of weird things happening must be very high. My neighborhood just handed over houses last year, and all of them are new residents. It's full of joy, laughter, prosperity, and peace and prosperity. Not so weird? It's a lot safer. However," Joe Hung changed the subject, "I really don't understand the current world. Isn't there a public toilet in the square of our new century home? Let me tell you, no one dared to go there for 2 weeks. It's the toilet. Didn't you slap yourself?" Yan Jun's felt amused, and asked casually, "Why?" While speaking, he looked up and saw the gate of Shuntian No. 3 Middle School. The Fenghua community where I live is only about 10 minutes away from the school. If I had known it was so close, I could find it wherever I walked, so I didn't have to ask Joe Hung to pick me up. Joe Hung didn't notice Yan Jun's expression, but said, "I heard that there is a woman wearing red high heels in the public toilet. Whenever someone defecates in the toilet cubicle, the sound of walking in those red high heels will be heard, and it is very loud. Hurry up and appear outside the cubicle. Do you know the fat man named Wang Shikeng in class 6? Yan Jun's knew a fart, but he still nodded. "Wang Shikeng and I live in the same community. That guy was playing basketball in the square this weekend. Halfway through the game, he had a stomachache and rushed to the toilet." Joe Hung said vividly, "Later, I heard that the fat man just stretched halfway, and those red high-heeled shoes appeared. I was able to see the pair of shoes through the gap under the toilet cubicle, just standing outside the cubicle where Fatty Wang shitted, motionless. It is said." Having said that, Joe Hung looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, with a look of admiration on his face. Fatty Wang was so frightened that he used the feces breaking technique to cut the 3 times in a row at the same distance. Didn't even wipe his butt, and finally managed to pull up his pants, turned over 2 compartments, took a mouthful of enough food, and rushed out of the toilet. This guy has been lying down since he got home, and his father has given the class teacher asked for leave. Internally signed works, please collect them, please collect them. End of this chapter. Chapter 4 Washing Hair. 1. No way, Yan Jun's admires Joe Dolly very much. The weird red high-heeled shoes incident that was serious and terrifying was rendered by this guy to a strong comic effect, which made Yan Jun's laugh, and suddenly wanted to see what Fatty Wang from class 6 looked like at the moment. The two walked into the No. 3 middle school campus talking and laughing. When they got here, Yan Jun's finally felt a sense of comfort after being reborn. As an assistant in the top scientific research room of Huaguo in the previous life, at least in this era, it is no problem to have a master's degree, so the knowledge of the 3rd year of high school is not difficult for Yan Jun's today. On the contrary, he enjoyed the quiet life on campus. Yan Jun's and Joe Dolly are in the 3rd, 5, class of senior high school, which is only a wall away from Wang Shikeng's 6th class. For this reason, Yan Jun's made a special inquiry, and Wang Fatty took a week off. It seems that what Joe Dolly said is true. After spending a day, Yan Jun sorted out the things in the school. First of all, the original owner of this body's studies belonged to the upper middle level, so now his grades have suddenly increased, which is reasonable and will not arouse any suspicion. Yan Jun's is afraid that the other party is the kind of scumbag at the bottom of the school. Now that he is possessed by a schoolmaster, it is not easy to use all his strength. Then there are less than 2 months until the college entrance examination, so the study of the third year of high school has become very tense. Even if there are strange incidents interfering, the spirit removers in Sunshine City will give priority to handling any students at the level of the third year for the school. Weird questions, to ensure students a clean, healthy, green, innocent learning environment without any negative energy. The head teacher of the third, 5, class of high school is a middle-aged greasy uncle with a big belly, named Xiang Dekai, but Yan Jun's learned that teacher Xiang's knowledge is indeed like his towering beer belly, which is worthy of the description of being full of knowledge. The teacher of other subjects, Yan Jun's, didn't have much impression. Except for Xiang Dekai, it was the teacher Zhang Tiantian who taught Megali, which made Yan Jun's eyes light up for a while, who had no girlfriend in the previous life, and then went out again. Zhang Tiantian belongs to the petite and cute type. Most boys have no resistance to this type, but Yan Jun's is an exception. It is true that he likes beautiful women, but he is not the kind of woman who needs to be cared for completely. Independent, thoughtful, not timid, relying on oneself when necessary, but can also deal with problems calmly alone. For this kind of girl, Yan Jun's has no resistance at all. Knock on the blackboard and draw key points. At the end of the day's class, Yan Jun's found that Shuntian No. 3 middle school seemed to be normal. He hadn't heard of any abandoned ancient wells, strange 13 steps, or a 5th toilet cubicle that he couldn't enter. This made Yan Jun's wonder whether the spirit man had set up a barrier in the school to isolate all the weird events from the school. But at the same time, Yan Jun's kept telling himself that there is no supernatural power or cultivation here, this is urban weirdness and pure. Zhou Dali was very active in school, and Yan Jun's also learned that the degree of expansion of this guy's body is inseparable from his family's genetics. It is said that when he was born, he weighed a full 11 kgs. And Zhou Dali often puts a very low slogan on his lips. This slogan is, "There is Dali in the 3 middle schools, and Dali makes miracles." Undeniably, he is a bear. Chinese food is eaten at school, so it basically doesn't cost much. Only after school, some students will go nearby to buy some snacks. Yan Jun's did not have this habit. He went home after school. When he got home, his mother Li Man was already cooking. Li Man's work has no fixed hours, it all depends on the cleaning company's schedule, and sometimes he can't go home on weekends even when he is busy. Yan Jun's didn't know how to cook. After finishing his homework, he followed Li Man to serve the food on the table and cleaned up the kitchen. Later, when his father Yan Deguo arrived at home, the family sat around the dining table. The couple did not have much anxiety about their son's academic performance. According to Yan Jun's previous grades, there is still great hope of entering the top 5 universities in the Tianmeng district of Huaying-Dadu. So Yan Deguo was more concerned about his son's emotional and physical aspects. After a few mouthfuls of food, he asked, "Did you sleep well last night?" Yan Jun's knew that the dark circles under his eyes had betrayed him, and he only slept for 3 or 4 hours last night. It is normal to have this state, and he is not going to hide it. "Well, I didn't fall asleep for a long time after seeing that thing, and then fell asleep at some point." "Did you hear the knock on the door?" Yan Deguo asked again. This question can confirm whether Yan Jun's fell asleep before 2 o'clock in the morning. It is undeniable that the old woman knocking on the door in the middle of the night is more accurate than the alarm clock. No. Yan Jun's concealed the truth. Yan Deguo nodded, probably knowing Yan Jun's rest time. Li Man said, "Have you finished your homework?" "I'm done, and I've finished reviewing." Yan Jun's put down the bowl and chopsticks, took a few sips of soup. "I'm going to sleep early today to make up for yesterday's sleep." "Well, go to bed early." Yan Deguo reached out and rubbed Yan Jun's hair. After dinner, Yan Jun's talked with his parents in the living room for a while, then went to wash at 8:30, and then went into his bedroom. In order to prevent disturbing her son, the TV in the living room was turned down by Li Man. However, although her voice with Yan Deguo was deliberately lowered, it still reached Yan Jun's ears. Yan Deguo said, "Tomorrow, you can go buy some oral liquids for calming the nerves, so that your son can recuperate his body." Li Man should have nodded, and the voice sounded, "Well, I will go to the pharmacy below tomorrow morning." Azaa has indeed studied very hard during this period, and today is the first time I have seen him finish his homework so early. Alas! Yan Deguo sighed, what is this world called? The pressure of ordinary life has already overwhelmed ordinary people, and now there are so many weird things for no reason. Let no one live. Li Mandao, especially Azaa, is facing the college entrance examination, and the family is like this now. Deguo, can you think of a way? Yan Deguo fell silent. After a while, his voice sounded again, "Today I went to find our factory manager. He has acquaintances in the city. As long as he is willing to spend money," the factory manager said, "he can go and ask for me, and join a team to get the job done as soon as possible. The bathroom thing has been dealt with." "How much?" Li Man asked. Yan Deguo probably compared a number with gestures, and the conversation between the two fell silent again. After another long time, Li Man sighed, "It's really not possible. I will go to the company to pay the salary in advance, plus deposits, it should be enough. It must be dealt with as soon as possible." Yan Deguo did not stop Li Man, "I will withdraw the money tomorrow, and after the money is collected, I will hand it over to the factory manager, and ask him to come out and make arrangements, so that this matter can be resolved as soon as possible, so that my son can take the exam with peace of mind." Yan Jun's went to the door of the bedroom. Probably after hearing this, he suddenly had some complicated emotions about his parents in this life, and then he walked back to the bed and lay down lightly. It seems that the decision to carry out the task of washing hair tonight is not too late. The premise is as long as it can be successfully completed. End of this chapter. Chapter 5 Washing Hair 2. After eavesdropping on the conversation of his parents in this life, Yan Jun's felt a warm current inexplicably in his heart. Even though he did not have an innate relationship with them, he could still feel this affection. "But I really didn't have a good rest last night, and I haven't adjusted my emotions, so I fell asleep already. When I woke up, it was already late at night." Yan Jun's was startled, opened his eyes, and found that the world in front of him was blurred, and then remembered that this body was a dog with glasses, reached out to grab the glasses, and quickly put them on. Looking at the time on the phone, it was already 1:03 in the morning. He pricked up his ears and listened to the movement outside the bedroom, but there was no sound. Presumably Yan Deguo and Li Man had already fallen asleep. Fortunately, the mission description is very clear: as long as you enter the bathroom after 12 midnight to wash your hair, you will pass the test. There is no requirement to wash at 12 o'clock, so even after 12 o'clock, as long as the little girl in red is still there, washing her hair by herself is considered as completing the task. Sneakily got out of bed, Yan Jun's took out the replacement bathroom key from his clothes, went to the bedroom door and opened it gently, then tiptoed to the aisle. He didn't dare to turn on the light, but took out the key with the faint light of the phone, and inserted the key into the keyhole of the bathroom door bit by bit at a very slow speed. It took about 5 or 6 seconds, and without making too much noise, the key was fully inserted, and then Yan Jun's began to slowly turn the key, ready to open the lock of the door. There was silence all around, except for the ticking sound of the wall clock in the living room. The darkness around him flooded in like a tide, almost completely submerging Yan Jun's sight. The faint light of the mobile phone in his hand has been fighting against the darkness. After turning the key twice, a chilly breath passed into Yan Jun's hand through the doorknob. He didn't know whether it was an illusion or a real chill. But Yan Jun's has no intention of stopping. There is still a last click, and the moment the lock is opened, there will be a click. This is the moment Yan Zhens is most worried about waking up his parents. Taking a deep breath, Yan Zhens gritted his teeth, involuntarily pressed the tip of his tongue against the roof of his mouth, and twisted it vigorously. Click! The lock is open. Yan Zhens stood at the door and exhaled softly. After listening carefully for a moment, there was no movement in the parents' bedroom. Then he took another deep breath and pushed open the bathroom door. There was no sound as the door opened. Almost at the same time it was turned on, Yan Zhens reached in and found the light switch in the bathroom, and immediately turned on the light. Turning on the light in the bathroom will not affect the parents sleeping in the bedroom, because the bedroom door of the parents is closed, and the escaping light only involves a small area in the aisle outside the bathroom. Right now, just opening a bathroom door, the whole process is like filming Mission Impossible, but Yan Zhens really has the illusion of transforming into Cruz at this moment. It's just that he didn't come to steal a certain chip, but to face a girl in red with a crooked neck and broken feet. The moment the light came on, Yan Zhens immediately scanned the bathroom, but he didn't see the girl in red, K'er. Of course, he can't see the door here, so he needs to go into the bathroom to see all the places in the bathroom, so as to ensure that there will not be a girl in red standing in a certain corner with her back facing him. Yan Zhens had already gone all out, stood at the door, turned his head to look at his parents' bedroom, but there was no movement. Obviously Yan Daguo and Li Man were sound asleep. He called up the space-time map in his mind, and the two faintly lit nodes and the time retracement line between the nodes appeared in front of him. There may only be one time, so be sure to take advantage of this retracement. Yan Zhens understands that the resetting time cannot exceed 5 minutes, and the task of washing hair must be completed within 3 minutes. That is to say, he can set the starting point of time rewinding at the moment when he enters the bathroom, and then set the end point at the moment 5 minutes later. As long as you move quickly, don't delay when you enter the bathroom, and start washing your hair immediately. From the beginning to the end of washing your hair, control it within 3 minutes, and it will not exceed the total time of 5 minutes on the time return line. If something happens during this period, Yan Zhens can take advantage of the only chance to make a comeback. After deducing it in his mind, there should be no mistakes. After Yan Zhens stood in front of the door and took a few deep breaths, he turned the phone screen to a constant light state, turned on the timer, and adjusted it to remind after 3 minutes. However, the countdown did not start immediately, but I thought about setting the starting point of the time retracement line at the present. At the same moment, the first node in the time-space map dimmed instantly. The starting point is set successfully. Yan Zhens once again thought about setting the endpoint of the retracement line at 5 minutes later, and the second node in the space-time map also dimmed immediately. The endpoint is set successfully. Here we go. Yan Zhens stepped into the bathroom in one step, and gently closed the bathroom door with his backhand. The moment the door was closed, he quickly turned around and looked around all corners of the bathroom, including behind the door, but he didn't find K'er's figure in red. Although I haven't seen the little girl, it doesn't affect the mission now. Yan Zhens came to the sink, facing the mirror. In the mirror is a thin cheek, with fluffy hair, a pair of 300-degree glasses on the bridge of the nose, with a slightly nervous expression, and glances at the position behind him in the glasses from time to time. It is definitely impossible to say that I am not nervous. Yan Zhens first put the adjusted mobile phone under the mirror, and leaned towards him to check the time. Pressed the drain switch in the sink to turn it off, and then started to turn on the water. After the hot water came out, he reached in to test the temperature of the water. He didn't turn off the faucet until most of the sink was filled. Looking at the phone screen, rolled up his sleeves, put the towel and shampoo within easy reach, then Yan Zhens stretched out his index finger, and pressed the 3-minute countdown on the phone. It took him less than a minute from entering the bathroom to completing these actions. It's time to wash your hair. Yan Zhens bent down and immersed his head in the water, so that his hair was completely wet. Because the action was a little rushed, unfortunately, my eyes got watery. He subconsciously closed his eyes. At this moment, Yan Jun suddenly felt a little cold in his body. He didn't know if it was an illusion or what. It was as if the bathroom had become a refrigerator, and the temperature had been greatly lowered. "Hey!" A very slight voice suddenly sounded behind him. Because his nerves were tense all the time, Yan Jun's whole body had been in a state of high tension, which made his five senses particularly sensitive, and he couldn't hear this sound very clearly. With a shiver, Yan Jun's reached out and got his own towel, and immediately wiped his eyes clean, but he remembered that during the process of washing his hair, he could not do anything unrelated to washing his hair. It is okay to wipe his eyes, but he dare not turn his head to look behind. Turning your head and looking back when washing your hair is obviously beyond the scope of washing your hair. Because of bending his body, he could only pass under his legs and glance at the ground not far behind him. Nothing. From this angle, Kir's eye-catching figure in red was not seen. But the cold indoors is getting worse. Don't waste time, Yan Jun's reminded himself, quickly opened the shampoo, poured some out, and wiped it on his head. Soon, a lot of foam gushed out. But he soon realized that the shampoo seemed to cost money. Nima is too crowded. Book Friend Group 1, 6414344073, Group 2, 5991545574, end of this chapter. Chapter 6 Washing Hair, 3, Squeezing too much shampoo means more foam, and more foam means that the foam will easily flow into the eyes. At this moment, what Yan Jun's is most afraid of is closing his eyes. Even if he washes his hair normally, the shampoo may flow into his eyes, not to mention the crowded situation. Sure enough, soon there were 3 streams of foam flowing to both eyes, and the left eye was specially taken care of, and 2 streams came at the same time. Yan Jun's had no choice but to close his eyes quickly while his eyes were stinging. The moment I closed my eyes, all kinds of weird associations flooded my mind. He had a strong feeling that there was an extra person behind him, and that person was staring at him through a pair of cold eyes. The little girl in red, Kir, should already be standing behind her? Yan Jun's remembers, washing hair. This task has a remark message, you are washing your hair, she is staring. That means that Kir will definitely stare at herself washing her hair. Leave it to him, I wash my own, she can look at it if she wants. Yan Jun's gritted his teeth, forced himself to concentrate on washing his hair, and quickly rubbed his hair. Although he forced himself not to think about other things, at this moment the 5 senses have been magnified countless times in this special environment, and he can immediately know the slightest trouble. For example, the indoor temperature is dropping, for example, there is an extremely weak sound coming from the corner of the toilet, or for example, it seems that a bug has climbed up his ankle, and there is a tingling feeling. He simply cannot determine which feelings are real. It's almost there. Yan Jun stopped rubbing his hair, trying not to care about any abnormalities. The next step is to rinse with water, and then dry the hair with a towel, and you're done. He was about to dip his hair full of foam into the sink, and then turn on the faucet to wash it, when his body trembled, and suddenly he felt his pajama pants tightened and was caught by something. This feeling is definitely not an illusion, but really being caught by something. Because Yan Jun's was bent over, it was impossible for Yan Jun's to straighten up immediately, so after his trouser legs were caught, he still immersed his head in the water of the sink. At the moment when the trouser leg was caught, Yan Jun's whole body was numb, and even his head soaked in the water seemed to no longer belong to him. There was a tightness on the leg again, and he was caught again, and then something wrapped around the thigh and climbed up. A burst of cold feeling, starting from the calf, passing through the thigh, right waist, and finally staying on the right side of the back. Even the shoulder was hooked by a cold thing. At this moment, Yan Jun's finally understood. It should be Kr. Slowly climbed up her back along her legs. Hey! The same familiar surprised sound came from behind again, but this time, the sound came from within half an arm's distance from Yan Jun's ear. One can imagine such a picture: a girl in red with a crooked neck, outturned feet, and a curved spine is lying on Yan Zhen's right side back, making a sound of surprise. Under the messy long hair, a pair of grey pupils are straight. Go stared at the fellow in front of him like an ostrich buried his head in the water of the sink. Yan Zhen's right side of his body was cold at the moment, and goosebumps kept popping up on his body. At this moment, his whole body exploded. I can no longer bear the feeling of being squatted on by Kier. In fact, Yan Zhen's didn't think that if Kier's height wants to watch him wash his hair all the time, standing under the sink will definitely not be able to form the best viewing angle. In addition, the bathroom is small, and there is no other better viewing position, so it is almost inevitable to lie on your body to watch. The most important thing is that you just look at it, and suddenly leaned into my ear and said, "Hey." The first mission, Yan Zhen's, who was already extremely nervous, heard this sound like a C4 bomb that was pressed and exploded instantly. "Oh, you're paralyzed." Yan Zhen's jumped involuntarily, subconsciously grabbed Kier's cold and thin arm with his backhand, and threw it out. Picking up a towel and wiping his eyes carelessly, Yan Zhen's quickly opened them. It was too late to wear glasses, and I could only see the corner of the wall close to the ceiling in a blur. Kerr, dressed in red and with disheveled hair, was lying there like a spider, and a strong chill had enveloped the entire bathroom. "Ah!" Kerr suddenly opened her dark purple lips, showing her pitch-black teeth, and let out a shrill cry. The parents were obviously awakened. There was movement in the bedroom, and at the same moment, Kerr in red kicked her legs and rushed towards Yan Zhen's. The disheveled head continued to enlarge in Yan Zhen's pupils. Rewind. Yan Zhen's only had time to send out this thought. Suddenly felt a sense of dizziness in his head, and then the surrounding scenes changed rapidly, turning back time. When the dizziness disappeared, his vision became extremely clear, because he had already put on his glasses and was standing at the door of the bathroom. Back to file. Yan Zhen's lowered his head involuntarily, seeing that the sleeves he had rolled up had been put down, his hands were dry, and he was standing at the door of the bathroom just like a few minutes ago. Inexperienced, novice village kills people. After confirming that the file has been reverted, Yan Zhen's was afraid for a while. He was very sure that he shouldn't have thrown Kerr off his back just now when his hair exploded suddenly. As long as he resisted and insisted on washing his hair, there would be no follow-up uncontrollable things happening. Looking at the map in my mind again, it is completely dark at this time, and the energy of the two nodes that were originally lit and the weak time retracement line has been exhausted. The only chance. Stepped into the bathroom in one step, and closed the door behind his back. This time, Yan Zhen's didn't look around anymore, because he knew that Kerr didn't show up at this moment. Kerr appeared after she officially started washing her hair. Put the phone under the mirror with the screen facing you. Then fill the sink, prepare shampoo and dry towels. Immediately, Yan Zhen's raised his head and looked at the young and slightly immature cheek in the mirror again. The sense of panic just now has been relieved by most. Now he knows very well that the whole process of washing his hair must be calm. Taking off his glasses, rolling up his sleeves, and pressing the 3-minute countdown on his phone, Yan Zhen's began to wash his hair for the second time. After the hair was wet, this time there was no tension at the beginning, the amount of water was just right, and it did not enter the eyes. The temperature in the room began to drop. It should be that Kerr is about to appear. Yan Zhen's resisted the same chill that rose in his heart, raised his head slightly, aimed at the shampoo, reached out and pressed some shampoo in his hand. Almost at the same moment. "Hey!" A familiar voice sounded from behind. He just took the shampoo with his right hand, shook it slightly, stayed for half a second, and then wiped it on his hair. This time, the shampoo was not squeezed too much, and the foam was welling up, which was just enough. The coldness in the room was obviously increasing. Yan Zhen's kept rubbing his hair, but his thighs and back felt more and more cold. Even though this was the second time, he found that his body was still shaking slightly, but the shaking was not large and could be controlled. The second operation was very good, so the shampoo did not flow into the eyes, and they could still be opened. Yan Zhun's kept his eyes open and lowered his head, and he could see the ground not far behind through his legs. 4 or 5 seconds after Kerr's signature voice "Hui," he saw a pair of bruised little feet. One of the soles of the feet was broken and turned outwards, standing just behind him. The visual impact was too strong. Yan Zhun's found himself trembling even more. He simply closed his eyes. The trouser legs tightened, and the next second, he was grabbed by a cold little hand. Again. Yan Zhun's felt as if he wanted to cry, but obviously, with Ker's short stature, he could really get the best viewing angle by lying on Yan Zhun's back. No matter how many times the time is rewound, this method is still Ker's best choice. Yan Zhun's thigh was entangled, and soon his waist and back tightened, and Ker climbed up to his right back again. His body was icy cold, but his heart was even colder. It is conceivable that the girl in red is reaching out and hooking Yan Zhun's shoulder, tilting her head to watch how he washes his hair. Hey! Ker made the same sound for the second time. Apparently she finally saw clearly this time. End of this chapter. Chapter 7 Washing Hair. 4. Hearing this, ghost kept saying hey in his ear. To be honest, Yan Zhun's restrained the urge to throw this little kid out again several times. The cold feeling almost soaked the whole body. Even though the water temperature was hot, Yan Zhun's could not feel it at this moment. After he continued rubbing his hair, he washed his head in the accumulated water in the sink and then drained the foam. Reached out and turned on the faucet, and tried the water temperature. When the temperature was not moderate, he had already stretched his head over to rinse it impatiently. The 3-minute time is coming to an end, and Yan Zhun's also wants to finish this shampoo as soon as possible, and doesn't want to be stared at by Ker all the time. During this period, Ker didn't move at all, just kept reaching out and hooking his left shoulder, lying on his back, tilting his head without any movement. If Yan Zhun's could turn his head to check, he would find that the pupils of Ker's grey eyes had been covered by a grey film, and he didn't know where the little guy's eyes were focused. The hair was cleaned quickly, but during the cleaning process, water inevitably entered the eyes. Yan Zhun's closed his eyes, kept breathing evenly, reached out and grabbed the dry towel. As long as he wiped his hair clean, the task of washing hair was completed. But the moment he grabbed the dry towel, a cold little hand rested on the back of his hand. This feeling is like when a table of people is eating hot and spicy hot pot, suddenly being drenched from head to toe with a basin of cold water. The whole body feels cold and the heart is flying. Yan Zhun's shook his right hand and dared not move any more. He pressed the towel with one hand. His heart was pounding, as if it was going to jump out of his chest, and he couldn't open his eyes, so he just froze. The little hand on the back of his hand didn't move, and didn't intend to let go. The scene is weird. Ker is a monster, her weight is almost 0, so even if she lies on Yan Zhun's body, there is no pressure on him. The most important thing now is that Yan Zhun's didn't dare to ask what this little guy was going to do, because once he asked, it would be considered as doing something unrelated to washing his hair. The cost of mission failure is too much for the current Yan Zhun's to bear. The time may be almost 3 minutes. Yan Zhun's gritted his teeth, not daring to delay any longer, grabbed the towel and slowly withdrew his hand. The cold little hand still didn't budge, it just pressed on the back of Yan Zhun's hand, motionless, following his hand. Yan Zhun's no longer cared about her, and accelerated the speed of getting back the towel. As long as he doesn't do anything unrelated to washing his hair, he would rather believe that Ker won't embarrass himself. It seemed like a century had passed during the 10 or so seconds of grabbing the towel, until when both hands held the towel and were about to wipe her head, Ker's little hand finally moved away slowly. Yan Zhun's raised his head quickly, wiped his hair clean, and wiped off the water around his eyes. In the process of doing these actions, the space-time map in my mind has emerged. Washing hair, panic, low, completed, get 100 points of different dimensional energy at the same moment, a time retracement line and two space-time nodes that had disappeared in the map light up at the same time. Not only that, after gaining 100 points of different dimensional energy, the illuminated time retracement line is still spreading forward, and soon reaches the third space-time node, which gradually glows brightly. At this moment, two retracement lines are lit. At the same time, Yan Jun's, who had wiped off the water stains from the corners of his eyes, quickly opened them. The first time he put on the glasses, he didn't do anything else, but immediately looked behind him. Because the task of washing hair has been successfully completed, and I also got 100 points of different dimensional energy as a reward. That means that Kair's obsession has been completed. Whether this little guy is reincarnated or goes to his own paradise, in short, he no longer has any reason to stay in his bathroom. But the moment he looked at his back, Yan Jun's, who was already relieved, was shocked. What caught his eyes was a red dress, messy long hair, and bruised limbs. These conspicuous features all explained that Kair was still lying on his back. This scene made Yan Jun's feel that he had become the turtle fairy in Dragon Ball. Kair's bruised hands were wrapped around his neck, tightly clasped together, and his feet were strangled tightly around his waist. Looking at this appearance, I really seem to be carrying a huge turtle shell. What's the situation? Isn't the task completed? Could it be that this is a rambunctious ghost, just clinging on and not leaving? At this moment, another line of words suddenly appeared in Yan Jun's mind. Obtain Cur, Wandering Spirit, Current Favorability, Neutral. Yan Jun's was dumbfounded. He never expected that this kid really wouldn't leave. At the beginning of the shampoo quest, it didn't say that you can get Cur after completing the quest, but there was a quest prompt: this evil spirit cannot be locked. Now that I think about it, this so-called lock should be to actively lock the evil spirit, or capture it. But now the task prompt is acquired, which may mean that Kair is willing to follow Yan Jun's. For Yan Jun's, he obtained this wandering spirit passively. Although it is undeniable that apart from the pair of glasses, this high school student's face is well defined and has a sense of lines, but Yan Jun's doesn't think it is his own appearance that conquered Kair. Chances are, Kair fell in love with watching herself wash her hair. In the past, Yan Jun's would not believe that even if he was killed, he could easily capture a little girl in red by washing his hair. But the facts are so now, whether he believes it or not, the little girl in red is here, lying on her back and never leaving her. Could it be that she will follow me like this in the future? Yan Jun suddenly felt his scalp go numb, and goosebumps appeared all over his body. Ker's weight is completely negligible, but what should I do if I go to the bathroom by myself with such a thing on my back? What about taking a shower? What if he wants to make a beautiful girlfriend in the future, and the two of them are extremely affectionate? What if at % number UN and asterisk do? With such a thing lying on my back all the time, I can't do anything. Yan Jun saw very clearly just now that Kair's attitude towards him is currently neutral. What if this little girl makes a mistake in the future, and her attitude towards herself becomes antagonistic or hostile? Yan Jun shook his head and smiled wryly, feeling that what was carried on his back was not a wandering spirit, but a time bomb that would emit F from time to time. Facing the mirror, Yan Jun turned around, and found that although Kair's back was shaped, she was lying on her body in a very natural posture. She kept her head buried on her back, motionless, as if she was asleep. Although the cold feeling is there, it is not as strong as it was at the beginning. Well, it has its own air conditioner in summer. As long as it doesn't hurt this young and vigorous body. After tidying up the bathroom, Yan Jun lightly turned off the lights and closed the door, and then played the emotional mission, impossible again, locked the bathroom door, and then quietly entered his bedroom. Lying on the bed, I didn't feel any discomfort behind me. Ker's ghost may only be seen in the mirror, and this kind of ghost cannot be treated as a real object. After completing the first task thrillingly, Yan Jun finally took a deep breath at this moment. From now on, I will wash my hair, and you will be on guard. You can watch the hair washing process however you want, as long as you don't my pure yang energy. Yan Jun's murmured softly. Hey! Ker answered. Hey, sister, can you talk? Hey! Welcome to join the book group, 6414344073, end of this chapter. Chapter 8 Happiness came too suddenly. Although he went to bed very late, Yan Jun's, who had just completed the first task, was obviously still very excited. He was in a daze all night and hardly fell asleep. When it was almost dawn, he woke up from the cold. The weather in May, even if the air is cool in the morning, a thin quilt is enough to resist, but Yan Jun's is sure that he was woken up by the cold. Woke up and sat on the bed, he turned his head and glanced back, but saw nothing, but there was a soaked chill in his body, and he was about to shiver. Immediately after getting dressed, Yan Jun's glanced at himself in the mirror while standing in front of the wardrobe mirror. Sure enough, Ker in red was lying behind her, as if she was deeply asleep. No, if the dead boy doesn't come down, he won't be able to do anything for the time being. I have to find a way to warm myself up first, otherwise I won't be frightened to death by the weirdness, but I will already be cold to death. Yan Jun's rummaged through the boxes, and after a while found a thick khaki sweater to put on. During the process of getting dressed, it had no effect on Ker behind her. At this moment, she seemed to have become transparent. The incident in the bathroom has been resolved. Yan Jun's must find a chance to convince his parents that there is no need to spend a lot of money to invite the spirit exorcist now. Looking at the time, it was already 6:10, and it was 20 minutes before his father Yan Deguo woke up and opened the bathroom door. Yan Jun's pondered for a while, and the warmth of his body also rose. Even though he didn't sleep well these few days, he felt that his body was in good condition. It seems that youth is indeed capital. Ker, who was lying on her back, seemed to be only bringing herself the cold, and did not find any other side effects that would cause harm to her body for the time being. Soon Yan Jun's thought of a way. He took out the bathroom key that he had exchanged, and before his parents got up, he opened the bathroom door and the light switch with ease. Then look at the phone time. Until 6:20, he adjusted his emotions and ran to his parents' bedroom in a panic. He knocked on the closed door first, and then shouted, "Dad, Mom, get up quickly." The door was open, and the thing seemed to be missing. 3 minutes later, Yan Deguo, Li Man, and Yan Jun stood in front of the opened bathroom door, staring inside with surprise. They have stood like this for more than 2 minutes, motionless. Yan Deguo hesitated for a while, and finally spoke, and asked Yan Jun's, "After you got up, this door was opened like this?" "Well, the light inside is also on, and it must have been on for a long time." Yan Jun's nodded confidently. While speaking, he twisted his body on purpose, shaking his back in front of Yan Deguo and Li Man, wanting to know if his parents could see Ker on his back. Facts have proved that worrying is unnecessary. Under the current situation, it seems that no one else can see Ker except himself. And even if Yan Jun's wanted to see Ker himself, he could only look through the mirror. Yan Deguo looked at the time, and it was not yet 6:30. According to his experience, if it is normal, it is not allowed to enter the bathroom at this time, otherwise it is easy to run into the ghost of the girl in red. A moment later, Yan Deguo gritted his teeth, showing an expression of resignation, and said to Li Man, "Honey, I'll go in and have a look. You and your son are guarding outside the door." After saying that, without waiting for Li Man's objection, he stepped into the bathroom with one step. Seeing the slight trembling of his thighs, Yan Jun's felt that his father's step was no different from stepping into hell. Time seemed to freeze. Yan Deguo stood in the bathroom for a long time, and the mother and son also stood outside the door for a long time, just staring wide-eyed. The hour hand on the wall clock in the living room pointed to 6:41, and Yan Deguo walked out of the bathroom. It seems, really gone. While talking to himself, Yan Deguo walked through all the rooms in the house, afraid that the girl in red would run out. If she appeared in other rooms in broad daylight, the matter would be much more serious than it is now. Li Man also followed up and down to check around. Half an hour later, both of them breathed a sigh of relief. Really seems to be missing. Yan Deguo was still worried, and said to Li Man and Yan Jun's, in this way, we will lock the bathroom door on time for the next 2 days. I will go into the bathroom after 12 o'clock in the evening. If it is determined that the thing will not appear again, it may be true. Gone. Thank God. Li Man clasped his hands together, raised his head and bowed to the sky, with an expression of thanking God for his blessing. Afterwards, Li Man put down his hands, staring at Yan Jun's in surprise, and said, Xiao Zi, why are you dressed like a rice dumpling? Is it cold? You are a thick winter sweater. Cold. Yan Jun's nodded firmly. You must pay attention to your health in the past few days. Yan Deguo showed concern, and then said to Li Man, now I think the matter of asking the exorcist to get involved can be slowed down. After confirming whether the thing is really still there, I will spend more money on it. It's not too late for money. Li Man has no objection to this proposal. The family was short of money, so it would be best not to advance my meager salary. Li Man even felt a sense of surprise that he had won the jackpot. There were strange incidents in other people's homes, and they either endured them until the arrival of the spirit eliminator, or simply moved away, and the weird incidents in their own homes disappeared by themselves. If she knew the real reason why her son was dressed like a rice dumpling at the moment, she wouldn't feel like she had won the lottery, but had lost her head. After an hour. Shuntian No. 3 Middle School, Class 5, Senior 3. At this time, the morning reading is going on, the teacher has not yet arrived in the classroom, all kinds of messy morning reading sounds are like the machines in Yan Deguo's factory, roaring, endless. The world of this planet also has an international language called Megali, which is similar to the popularity of English on Earth. So there are many students who recite the American Kali language at this point. Yan Jun's has read the textbook carefully and feels that the pronunciation and usage are not much different from English, but there are some very subtle differences. For him, this difficulty can be ignored. While he was studying the Megali language, Zhou Dali was staring at him in surprise. Soon Yan Jun's raised his head and stared at Zhou Dali, what are you doing? Why are you dressed like a zongzi? Zhou Dali's exaggerated eyes stared straight at Yan Jun's, who seemed to be in winter. Do you have a special liking for zongzi? Yan Jun's complained in his heart, tightened his coat, and put on a thick sweater under the coat. I have a bit of a cold, I feel cold. This day, will it be cold? Zhou Dali stretched out his Popeye arm that was about to catch up with Yan Jun's waist, rolled up his sleeves, revealing a piece of muscle, and quickly waved it under the noses of the two female students Baoji and Zhang Ruxin at the next table, showing off his muscles. Also showed his unparalleled hand speed and the vibration frequency that he had obviously trained a lot. The two ladies gave him a mentally retarded look, and neither spoke. At this moment, Yan Jun suddenly felt that Kir, who was lying on his back, which he almost forgot, moved slightly. The class bell rang, and the teacher came. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Zhang Tiantian. Yan Jun's in his last life usually didn't like to stare at people, he thought it was a very impolite behavior, even when he was watching the teacher in class. But now he is enjoying the American Kali language course. Teacher Zhang Tiantian is less than 1.6 meters tall, with a thin body and wavy hair. She looks just like her name, and looks very sweet. The most important thing is that the voice is very nice. Yan Jun's was a little obsessed with this sweet voice. Mr. Zhang Tiantian taught Megali for 2 consecutive classes in the morning. Almost all the students in the class were very focused. Therefore, the teacher's appearance does have the function of promoting the desire to learn. Zhou Dali had already retracted his Popeye arm, he didn't listen much to the class, and his eyes shot back and forth at Zhang Tiantian and his classmate Baoji from time to time. Yan Zhens understood his entanglement. From the first day after he was reborn in this world, he knew that this guy had a crush on Baoji. But now because it is Zhang Tianxian's class, Zhou Dali wants to see Zhang Tiantian more, a typical adolescent boy syndrome. But it seems that Baoji doesn't like muscular men with sticks, nor does he like Yan Zhens, who is weak and thin, but likes sunny, handsome and athletic boys, such as Zhou Jiajia who sits in the third row. From the beginning of class, Kair was not as honest as last night, and would move after a few minutes. Although she weighed almost nothing, Yan Zhens could clearly feel her moving around. After the first class, Yan Zhens went to the men's toilet downstairs. Zhou Dali also followed in a fart, muttering in a low voice as he walked, "What do you think is good about Zhou Jiajia? He's such a badass. If he wasn't worried that his father is the deputy director of Suncheon City Hall, I would have found a chance to beat him up." "You are an honest man." Yan Zhens couldn't help smiling. Zhou Dali also laughed along with him, and inadvertently glanced at the large mirror on the toilet wall, and then froze, staring at the mirror quietly. Yan Zhens was startled immediately, and quickly looked behind him through the mirror. Kerr obediently lay on her back. Although she didn't move, she could still see the girl in red clearly. Yan Zhens turned his head and glanced at Zhou Dali again. This guy was still staring into the mirror. Not only did he not look back, but he took 2 steps forward and looked into the mirror seriously. "You?" Yan Zhens' heart beat like a drum, not sure if he, like himself, could see Kair through the mirror. "I." Zhou Dali stared at the mirror, leaned towards the mirror vigorously, stared at it for a long time, and said, "Here, how come there is another pimple? I'll go to your grandma." Yan Zhens couldn't help cursing, feeling like his heart was about to jump out of his throat. Zhou Dali didn't seem to hear it. He was trying to squeeze out the newly discovered pimple, and from time to time rubbed the few beards that had just grown on his chin. Yan Zhens was a little worried. At this time, there were other students entering the toilet. He stood in front of the mirror and swayed, looking at these students passing by. No one noticed the abnormality on his back. "It seems that I am worrying too much." Back to class, Yan Zhens still listened attentively in the second American Kali language class. Just sat down for a while, but Kair started to squirm again, giving Yan Zhens the feeling that she didn't like listening to the class, but she didn't move once during the 10 minutes between classes. "It seems that I have to think of a way, otherwise this has already begun to affect my life." Yan Zhens was thinking while staring at Zhang Tiantian, who was wearing a black striped teacher's professional attire on the podium. Zhang Tiantian was speaking a sentence structure in the Megali language very seriously. Her sweet voice combined with those extremely clear pupils attracted most of the students' attention. This sentence pattern is the key point. It will definitely appear in the college entrance examination. Please take careful notes of what I just said. As soon as Zhang Tiantian reminded, most of the students picked up their pens, including Zhou Dali, who also started to memorize them in their notebooks. Yan Zhens didn't take any notes because he was thinking about Kair. He stared straight at Zhang Tiantian, but his mind was running at high speed. But Zhang Tiantian suddenly quieted down, and the movement of pointing at the blackboard stopped for an instant, and her gaze froze while looking at the bottom of the podium. At this moment, Yan Zhens clearly saw that Zhang Tianxian's clear black pupils disappeared, replaced by completely white pupils, filling both eye sockets. The pair of white pupils caused Zhang Tianxian's whole person to change instantly, the sweet and lovely feeling disappeared, and a chilling strange feeling suddenly rose. This process only lasted about 3 seconds, and the white pupils flipped quickly, revealing the black pupils again. At this time, Zhang Tiantian started to move again after pointing at the blackboard. She put down her hand and said nonchalantly, "Have you remembered it all? Is there anyone who didn't remember it? Let me explain it again." "Old teacher." Zhou Jiajia, who was sitting in the third row, suddenly raised his hand. "You just, how? Obviously, Yan Jun's was not the only one who noticed Jiang Tianatian's strangeness. Zhou Jiajia sitting in front seemed to see it more clearly. What's wrong? Jiang Tiantian was surprised, she didn't seem to realize what was abnormal about her just now. No. It's nothing. Zhou Jiajia looked horrified and shook his head. Class continues. Yan Jun's didn't say anything, but he was sure that something happened to Jiang Tiantian. The moment her white pupils appeared, hair on Yan Jun's back squirmed more frequently. Now, he figured out why hair was moving around. Looking at Zhou Jiajia, this guy was obviously absent-minded, and his expression couldn't hide his horror. The rest of the students didn't notice it, and Jiang Tiantian herself taught very normally, without any other abnormal behavior. About 5 or 6 minutes later, Zhou Jiajia raised his hand again. Jiang Tiantian stopped lecturing and looked sideways at him. Teacher, my stomach suddenly hurts badly, please take a leave. Zhou Jiajia seemed to be distorted by the pain, and stood up while speaking. Yes. Jiang Tiandian nodded, did I eat something wrong? Tian Hao, you can accompany him to the infirmary. Tian Hao was at the same table with Zhou Jiajia, and upon hearing this, he also stood up and was about to reach out to support Zhou Jiajia. Zhou Jiajia waved his hand, no, I can do it by myself. After finishing the sentence, he quickened his pace, clutched his stomach, and almost trotted out of the classroom. This guy. Yan Jun smiled wryly. Zhou Jiajia obviously realized that something abnormal happened to teacher Jiang Tiantian, maybe it was some weird incident, so he was afraid that he would be hurt, so he found an excuse and slipped away. If you want to say smart, this guy has a lot of brains, but if he is courageous, Yan Jun's is too ashamed. It seems that if Baoji really finds this kind of man, hard times are still ahead. Zhou Jiajia's departure, the other students have no doubts, only Zhou Dali cursed to this family in a low voice, stomach pain? I curse you to pull 30 times a day, pull out the anus. Yan Jun's gave this guy a blank look. Students, please look at my mouth shape and pay attention to distinguishing it with your ears. The pronunciation of this sentence in the text is reflected in the continuous reading. If you can't read it, you won't understand it at all. At this moment, Jiang Tiantian opened her mouth while speaking, and when she was about to pronounce, she froze suddenly. Mouth slightly opened, right hand just raised, on the white cheeks, the black pupils in the eye sockets suddenly flipped, turned into white pupils again, and the whole person remained motionless. Everyone in the class saw this weird scene clearly this time. End of this chapter. Chapter 10 Time Limit 10 minutes, 1, Shuntian No. 3 Middle School, in the classroom of Grade 3, 5, class, there was such a picture at the moment. All the students in the class stared dumbfounded at a petite female teacher on the podium. The female teacher's mouth was slightly open, but she couldn't see the white teeth. The bright and clear black pupils had been completely replaced by white pupils. There, like a statue. This time, it took longer than last time. Yan Jun's couldn't help but count the seconds in his heart, feeling that 7 or 8 seconds should have passed, but Jiang Tiantian still had this weird and terrifying look. Jiang! Teacher Jiang! After the classroom fell into a brief silence, a male student sitting in the front row couldn't help but shouted. As soon as the words came out, Jiang Tianatian's neck twisted slightly, making a clicking sound, and turned to the male classmate. But her pupils are still white. I saw that her slightly opened mouth began to slowly continue to open, as if being supported by an invisible big hand, and she still couldn't see her teeth. At this moment, the round mouth that had fascinated countless students just now seemed to have changed. It became a bottomless black hole. It was silent. Jiang Tiantian still didn't make any sound while stretching her mouth wide. But in the next second, at least 7 female students screamed at the same time, and the high-pitched part of the sound wave was comparable to the climax of Veda's Opera 2. Yan Jun's just felt a buzzing in his ears, almost deaf. All the students stood up and frantically rushed towards the door of the classroom. I'm going, let's go. Something is wrong with Mr. Zhang. Zhou Dali grabbed Yan Jun's collar. Yan Jun's didn't have time to think at all, and the two squeezed out of the classroom door in an instant. His feet had no chance to touch the ground from the beginning to the end, and Zhou Dali dragged him to a safe place like flying a kite. Hearing screams, the nearby classroom also exploded. Teachers and classmates ran out of the classroom one after another, rushing forward to ask what happened. However, after listening to the sporadic narrations of the students in the 3rd, 5, class of senior high school, most of the faces changed immediately. At this moment, someone yelled, Ms. Zhang fainted. Everyone looked into the classroom, only to see Zhang Tiantian had fallen on her back on the podium, as if she really passed out. First, take her to the office first. The teacher in the next class, a bald man in his 40s, hurriedly ordered, Zhao Menjun, go and inform the dean, there may be something weird. A male classmate who looked very clever agreed, and trotted all the way downstairs. Several other young male students bravely entered the classroom again, and found that Zhang Tiantian was indeed dizzy. They lifted her up in a hurry, and went downstairs under the command of the bald teacher, and came to the opposite side out of breath. The office of the American Kali language teacher on the 2nd floor of the complex building. This office has a large area and can accommodate 8 to 10 teachers at the same time. However, after Zhang Tiantian was carried in, the 5 teachers who were sitting in it ran out immediately. They have already heard about what happened to Zhang Tiantian. Not long after lying on the sofa in the office, Zhang Tiantian woke up slowly, looking at the surrounding environment in surprise. She remembered that she was still in class, and returned to the office for some reason. Mr. Zhang, you fainted just now. You may not be feeling well. We have already contacted the hospital, and a doctor will come soon. The bald teacher seemed to have a lot of experience in encountering weird incidents, and he said nonsense in a serious manner, now you are lie down on the sofa and don't go anywhere. Don't fall again. After finishing speaking, the bald teacher winked at the other students, and everyone left the office immediately. In class, Zhang Tianatian's black pupils turned into white pupils, and her mouth kept opening. The bald teacher's descriptions from the students have already made the bald teacher tremble with fear. He doesn't want to stay here. And the school is a key protection place. Even though weird incidents happen frequently nowadays, as long as the school is involved, the Spirit Exorcist organization will immediately activate the emergency mechanism. They don't have to worry about that. What needs to be done now is to prevent accidents from happening before the arrival of the spirit remover. Everyone has experience, as long as they are not close to the place where the weird event occurs, the chance of danger is not high. Now it seems that Tian herself is the subject of this weird incident. Outside the office, not only the principal Zhang and the dean of No. 3 middle school, Shen He, but also teachers from other classes and a large number of students came here after hearing the news. But these people stopped on the 1st floor in an orderly manner, and didn't even go up to the 2nd floor. There is no need for someone to explain the danger of supernatural events, everyone knows it. Dean Shen He took out a folded yellow talisman from his arms, went up to the 2nd floor by himself, carefully placed it at the door of Zhang Tianatian's office, and then came downstairs again. Shen He belongs to the kind of very traditional person. After the weird incident broke out, all kinds of jade objects and talismans have been inseparable from his body. Although he also knows that the actual effect of these things is almost negligible after encountering weirdness, but people always need a psychological comfort, and it is better than nothing. Classes will be suspended from now on, and students can go home, and those who are far away will go back to the dormitory immediately. The silver-haired principal Zhang cleared his throat, and said to everyone, the spirit remover will come to deal with it soon. Go back, wait for the notification later. It is possible to continue to attend classes tomorrow without any impact. Yan Jun's and Zhou Dali were also standing in the crowd, and they looked at each other. Hey, let's go to the internet cafe later. Zhou Dali gave Yan Jun's a look. Go home and review. Yan Jun's turned his head and left. Hey, why have you changed so much all of a sudden? You love studying so much, I'm not used to it. Zhou Dali muttered with his head down, but slammed into Yan Jun's, who suddenly braked. Why? Why are you so sick? Also froze? Hey, let me see if the eyes have changed color. White or green? Become your sister. Yan Jun's turned around, looked at the office on the second floor not far away, and the task of time-space map popped up in his mind. Detected new different dimensional energy and dimensional space transverse band, analyzing, task name, stay in the same room with Zhang Tiantian, mission level, trembling, low, mission background, as a possessed spirit, it is very lonely. Nobody ever cared about it, it couldn't be released. So it falls in love with adsorption, and likes to be surrounded by pure breath, slowly away the essence of the body, and then swallow it mouthful. Task description, as in the title, the duration is 10 minutes, mission reward, 500 different dimensional energy points, mission penalty, become the second Zhang Tiantian, mission reminder, the evil spirit can be locked, note, do not try to provoke it, or the consequences will be serious. End of this chapter.